This is Coffee Chat, changes to training and regulation that you need to know, presented by the CALSAGA Ambassador Committee. CALSAGA is the California Association of Licensed Security Agencies, Guards, and Associates. You're watching the replay of a live webinar that took place on April 27th and was a conversation between CALSAGA President David Chandler and CALSAGA Northern California Director Ashlee Cervantes. As we join the replay, David is giving background information on AB 229, which was introduced by Assemblymember Chris Holden and signed by Governor Newsom in 2021.
So he decided that there was an incident that happened up here in Sacramento at an arena where some security guards subsequently or allegedly tackled an individual that got on the property. And in the manner in which they were handcuffing the individual, allegedly put their knee on his neck, and subsequently the individual passed away at a later date. This reminded Holden of the whole incident with George Floyd back east, and therefore AB 229 started coming around. He started calling the Bureau first to get some information and direction, and then he called POST, which is Peace Officer Standards and Training Organization up here in Sacramento, and they gave him some direction. And then he started formulating 229. During his formulation, the Bureau asked him to contact us and CALSAGA and ask for our input. We gave a lot of input, and a lot of it was disregarded because he wanted to just move forward and get this stuff done. So as we go through some of the questions, I'm sure you'll get a lot of answers to hopefully a lot of the questions. But it's going to change. I know, Ashley, you're just going to put your little hand and say, stop talking. It's going to change the way that we provide the powers of arrest, weapons of mass destruction, de-escalation of force, and it's going to add a lot more modules to our AB 2880 training stuff.
Yeah, so in a brief summary, right, it was well, no, you did a great job. I think a great job laying the context. So it was presented by Senator Holden. There's some critical Assemblyman, I keep doing that, thank you for that correction, Assemblyman Holden, and I've done that like so many times, but the critical changes that are coming down the timeline are going to be the changes to training, specifically to what was weapons of mass destruction and powers to arrest, and then we expect additional changes in the training requirements as well. And really all of this is a result of BSIS not being able to provide those statistics when it came to those field incidents when they were asked. And so the big change that we'll talk about in a moment that's already kind of gone into effect really has changed already the reporting requirements for PPOs. So before we get into that though, can you kind of walk us through the timeline, the most important dates that everyone should be aware of with regards to AB 229 and when PPOs and training facilities will see that impact or should expect that to come?
Well, the PPOs should have already seen the impact and already heard about the impact. So AB 229 is cut into two pieces. Number one is a reporting component, which added some verbiage to the section of the law that said if you discharge a firearm, and then it said and or had an altercation with a member of the public. And we remember in the altercation with a member of the public, 4 things had to happen. You had to have the security guard had to be reprimanded or discharged. There had to be medical attention. The guard was arrested by law enforcement, and I don't remember the 4th one, but what the Bureau added, or what Assemblyman Holden added, is any use of force or violence upon any person, which got us thinking that any use of force, and you got to remember, guys, I'm trying to be as vague as possible for everybody so you understand the implications, but battery in California is as simple as an unwanted touch. An unwanted touch is battery. So any use of force or violence against any person or member of the public, it really widens up the opportunities. Yeah. And we'll get into 2515 in a little while, and I'll tell you what happened there. But So there was two components. The reporting component today, January 1, 2022, which you're required to report any use of force or violence upon any person. And then what's coming in 2023, January 1st, is the whole new revamped powers to arrest. And chances are, I don't think they've really landed on an actual title, but it'll probably be de-escalation of force or appropriate use of force, some verbiage along that line. It has to get cleared to the attorneys and everything first. And what that's going to be, in a nutshell, is originally the Bureau wanted to make powers of arrest a 10-hour program. So before you hired anybody, it would go from an 8-hour class to a 10-hour class. And right off the bat, in issues that we run into with labor laws and such, we can't start off, and this is what I told the Assemblyman and I told the Bureau, we can't start off going into overtime for the first day the guy's not even working for us yet. So we need to keep it at 8 hours. And that was fought with a little bit of resistance, and then subsequently they bent and went along with it. Now, I haven't met anybody yet in the security industry that does not appreciate teaching de-escalation of force or limiting the opportunity for somebody to get hurt, whether it's a guard or somebody else. Nobody wants to fight that. Nobody wants to fight the training. It's the method in which we're going to be forced to do this. And that's the issues that we have with the CALSAGA, is to make it as easy a transition as it possibly can. So they want to do they're going to keep the powers of arrest and de-escalation of force at 8 hours. But because of everything else that they want to get into this that came from this bill, they're going to have to make some new modules up. And whether they'll be mandatory modules or they'll be elective modules, that still remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's happening there yet. And the Bureau doesn't know because they're still writing it.
Right. And so in terms of the timeline, if I'm understanding you correctly, the big thing that everyone should already be aware of is the big reporting requirement change that already went into effect January 1. So anytime you have that, right, sort of vague, but very specific at the same time, interaction, altercation with a member of the public, that needs to be reported to BSIS within, this is a pop quiz for me, I always have to double check, 7 business days. Did I get it right?
Yes, it went from 7 days to 7 business days. We snuck the word business in there, thank God, because the Bureau is counting weekends. And if it was happened on a holiday, by the time by the time Monday morning came around, if it happened on a Friday night, you're already 3 days backwards. So we got it as 7 business days. So that was a big plus. And
absolutely
fight for that.
So that went into effect January 1, and then we're just waiting on those final changes. And the reality is the way that legislation works in Sacramento is that we really won't know the final changes to that language until the last minute, right? December 2022, and then it'll go into effect January 1, 2023.
Right.
Awesome. Well, let me just pause to say thank you so much on behalf of every PPO in California, both members and non-members. David, your hard work to, I know this is an uphill battle when you're constantly going back and forth to Sacramento. Just so everyone knows, David doesn't talk about this a whole lot, but board members, including the president's position, is an unpaid position. He really is just passionate about this work to make the industry a better playing field for all of us. And so I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you for that. We really do appreciate all of that hard work. I know this was a hard fought battle, and we didn't win every battle, but I think that we're going to come out on top ultimately because of your efforts. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So with that, the next question, you did, highlight it a little bit, but the portion of the bill that's already into effect, so the reporting side of AB 229, we talked a little bit about the 4 reporting requirements. Where can we find that in our BSIS, quote unquote, air quotes, Bible? Where can we find that? Roughly, I mean, you don't have to give me the exact page, or knowing you probably can give us the exact page.
Yeah, sadly, I probably can. But the big thing that you have to remember is that the incident report form that the Bureau wants you to fill out is on the Bureau's website. So you just go on the Bureau's website, look for the incident report form, and they want you to fill it out. Now, remember, I am not an attorney, and I'm going to caution you that anything that you write down on a form that you send to the state of California can be a matter of public record. So just remember, it can be subpoenaed, and they can get a look at it. Some defense attorney can catch it somewhere else. So make sure that before you turn the report in, because there's been guards in California that turn reports into the Bureau. It's supposed to be by the PPO or qualified manager, and they're supposed to just write a brief synopsis of what happened. Now, the Bureau has been, how do I put this gently? The Bureau has been asking for these reports since January 1 this last year, and they have received a tremendous amount of reports. And when I say tremendous amount of reports, there's one security company in California that has a lot of hospital accounts. And in a hospital, if anybody's ever worked a hospital before, you get people that we say in underground regulations 5150, which means that they're not 100% right. There's 50% okay and 51% not okay. So they're having some mental issues, and the hospital staff will ask security personnel to come and hold down the individual while the hospital staff, put soft ties on the individual or hard ties, whatever their determination is, how violent this individual is going to be. So because it's a use of force or violence against any member of the public, this security company has had to send incident reports in on every incident. Now, to give you an idea, and I don't have today's count, but it started January 1. As of, say, February 28th, the security company had already turned in over 1,800 incident reports.
Wow.
There's many per day.
Yeah.
And we told the Bureau this ahead of time, maybe for this one reason, we need a carve out for hospitals.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about 2515 in a few minutes, so that there's going to be another tie there. But there has been a lot of incidents in California with security companies that have had contact with guards, and the Bureau wants to know what it is. Also, with these 1,800, a bunch of them have been asked to provide copies of their training records.
Yep.
So not only are they getting an incident report, but they're getting training records. And if you don't know, if you haven't heard one of my speeches yet about training records, in the Business and Professions Code, it talks about, there's one section that talks about if you, a member of the public or a private patrol operator, violate any provision of the Business and Professions Code, the Bureau can suspend your license, can revoke your license, can cancel your license, and everything else. Missing a certificate qualifies as a violation of a public law. I will also caution you that an insurance company will not indemnify you for a violation of a public law. That means if you come up forget the Bureau for a second, you come up in a civil lawsuit because of something that happened with a guard, in discovery, they ask you for training records. You don't have them. And again, I'm not an attorney, but what attorneys have told me is you automatically lose because you violated the public law, and the insurance company won't pay the fees. So whoever the owners of the security companies are, that's where the money's coming from. Of course, I'm not trying to depress anybody, because otherwise everybody would be in Arizona working, which I don't know why we're not in Arizona working, but we're in California. California is, if you don't know it, and welcome to California, we're the 5th largest economy in the world. Russia's 12th. So it tells you how much we've got going on in California. So that's the one section about the certificates. So the Bureau's asking for certificates, not on every single one yet, but on a lot of them. And they're looking for violations. If you don't have your AB 2880 training, if you don't have your continuing education every year. And each certificate, depending on which one it is, the powers of arrest certificate is worth $2,500. Firearms certificate, $2,500. Baton, chemical agent, $2,500 a piece. Everything else is about $250, and it goes up to $500. So anywhere in there, it's a scale. So each individual, I've done audits at companies. I've been to a company that they didn't really have any certificates at all, and we figured out that the 25 or 30 guards that he had would have cost him over $300,000+ in fines.
Oh, that's it.
Oh yeah, it was an easy one. So that's what's happening with the with regulation regarding the reporting requirements.
Yeah, well,
I know I'm trying to be brief because I want you to move along.
No, that was very helpful. And I really liked that you gave the example of a 5150 patient as a time in which BSIS is saying, yes, we do expect that to be an incident report where security staff gets involved. That is considered an altercation, even though, you know, it's this kind of unique circumstance. Can you give us like another example of when a report should be submitted?
So this is going to tie into 2515, but your officer, your guard, decides to walk somebody off of property. If he grabs the individual's arm to guide him off the property, is that considered a use of force? And again, I'm not going to tell you it is. I'm not an attorney, but I promise you an attorney will tell you that it is use of force. So if your officer makes an arrest, a legal arrest, is that use of force? If the guy willingly, you know, gives up here, I'll put my hands behind my back, your guard handcuffs him, is that a use of force or violence? I mean, I would rather be cautious. So and I know you haven't asked me this, but in this section, if you fail to report an incident, it's $2,500.
Yeah.
Fail to report an incident. And remember, guys, it's not PPO's or your I'm going to say your office staff that's going to I hate to use the word rat you off, but a lot of times it's the employees or another security company sees what you did, and they'll call the bureau and say, hey, I saw these guys tackle somebody and get away with it.
Sure. Or a member of the public, the individual who the incident occurred with, they get upset, they go online, they do a Google search, and voila, now they're calling BSIS. Absolutely. No, that makes sense. So now that we've covered the reporting side on AB 229, let's talk about the other emphasis of the bill. And we will get to AB 229's little brother bill, which is AB 2515 in just a few minutes, that David's been referencing. So I know you all are sitting on the edge of your seat, just dying to know what that is. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the training piece. So diving into that a little bit more, you know, we know that the initial 8-hour piece is definitively changing. So we know pretty much definitively that WMD will be completely removed. We know we're pretty certain that powers to arrest will likely remain roughly the same. Is that still correct?
Yes and no. It's going to change.
Okay.
It's going to move stuff around within powers of arrest, weapons.
Okay.
Weapons of mass destruction will become an elective class.
Okay. Yeah.
So you'll never be able to get rid of the video. You'll never be able to stop seeing Charlene Zettel from 2004 when she was the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. It'll always be available for an 8-hour or for a 4-hour refresher.
Now, what would you say is the biggest change to that 8-hour requirement?
So we went to Holden's office, and we told Holden. Holden said, first off, the bureau consulted with Holden and said, we want the powers to arrest to be in a traditional classroom setting where there's an instructor present and can answer questions in case the individual doesn't understand what they're saying. Okay, I get it, right? They want an instructor in the class. Now, this is all going on when we're finishing COVID. So I told Holden's office, I said, look, right now we can't get 10 people in a classroom together. We can't get a classroom large enough to put 40 people in unless we rent out a stadium. So can we do this on Zoom? Can we have can we do the classroom on a webinar where the instructors present can see all the students, can hear all the students? And they said, absolutely not. They said, hell no, basically hell no. They want an instructor present. I said, well, then you're asking, of course, I apologize to everybody, but sometimes I get frustrated because they're asking, which I told them, so you're asking me to violate the law and the health code by putting instructors in a bad situation where they could get sick or hurt, and they didn't care about that at all. So what they came up with is they said that for powers of arrest and de-escalation of force, 50% of the class can be taught using a video. So what does that mean? That's not that we didn't come up with a video at all. But the other half of the class has to be taught by instructor led. So, you know, right now I don't know how many of you know about getting a guard card online. I will tell you that the Bureau of Security Investigative Services does not license online training. Okay, they never have, and they have no intention of doing it online. However, if you have a training facility or you are a PPO and you want to put it online and take whatever responsibility comes with it, the Bureau has no problem with that. As long as you're using your license number, follow the law, follow the rules. That's how a lot of online companies came about. I don't see how online companies are going to be able to do the powers of arrest training. I just can't see it because they want an instructor in the classroom. They want them present with the students, not on a Zoom, not on a webinar, not WebEx or any of these other things I tried to push for. They want the instructor in the classroom. So I got a few calls from some people that are in the online industry, and they were very upset with me that I wasn't fighting hard enough to help the online industry out. And I sadly told them, and if any of you are on the line, you remember me saying this, that we have no online members. So I don't represent you. And if you're a PPO that's doing it online, good for you. You're getting away with it. And, figure out how to do it in the future. But we had someone in Holden's office had some pushback from a couple of online companies, and then the Bureau told them that they don't license online companies. So
Yeah.
that stopped that problem.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting component, and I'm really eager to see, how that's going to transform in the coming months. As we know with legislation, it is possible that things can be pulled out and added all the way up until the last minute. And that's why we shared in the timeline with all of you listening today that really we won't know until December of this year what will go into effect January 1 of 23. So kind of in that vein, 2 questions. Can you tell us just a little bit about the Training Regulation Committee that you've been serving on with BSIS? And then with that, can you kind of look into your magic crystal ball and tell us, what do you really foresee happening with the training electives, based on your work in that committee with BSIS?
So BSIS opened up a small little committee that they chose the people that they wanted in it. We have another training facility. We've got a EP company. We were asked to be on it, luckily, and not many other people. Post is on this committee. They've got 3 members on this committee because they're giving a lot of input. And during one of the conference calls, the Post committee member said, "Well, as far as we're concerned, all the stuff that you want to put into 8 hours is really about a 3-month course for us." And I had to remind them, I said, "Listen, we just want to get a guard to go to work. We just need a guy to come to work and start working now. We want to have the smallest amount of training possible to get them in a uniform, get them licensed, get a uniform and go to work. I don't have time to put somebody through a 3-month course before we give them a guard card." So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to fight stuff like that, which is just totally ridiculous. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You have to explain to people that have no concept of what the fundamental difference is between a security guard and a police officer. They don't get it. They want everybody to be policemen, and they want all the reporting requirements to be the same, which it absolutely can't happen.
Yeah. It's fascinating, all of the different things that they were trying to fit in the initial 8 or even 10 hours. And I think that you're really hitting the nail on the head. My perception, and this is, speculation really, but is that they really, obviously 3 of the committee members, and there's only 6 of you on the committee, 7 of you on the committee.
And a lot of Bureau staff.
Right. And then, and then three of the outside members from the Bureau of the 7 or whatever it may be are from Post. It really does kind of shine a light on the perspective that they're looking to take. And I think that's a big takeaway for everyone on this call today. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like at the end of December going into effect for January 1, but our magic crystal ball, or David's magic crystal ball, is kind of showing us that direction that they're looking ahead. And if I remember correctly, some of the proposed items that they were looking to add in to the electives and maybe even, you know, the initial 8 hours even was like a bias training, community relations, criminal and civil liabilities. Like there was a long list, right?
Let me just, and I know we're trying to keep this thing short. Let me just cover the list of what is already in law.
Yeah.
And it is already passed. We had no way of stopping any of this. So let me just read the quick little list to you. It's under 7583.7, but it's just, I'm just going to briefly go over the highlights of what they want, what the Bureau and Assemblyman Holden's office want in the initial 8 hours of powers to arrest, okay? Responsibility and ethics in citizens arrest. Relationship between a security guard and a peace officer in making an arrest. Limitations on security guard power to arrest, restriction on searches and seizures, criminal and civil liabilities, including both the following: personal liability and employer liability, trespass law, ethics in communication, emergency situation response, including response to medical emergencies, security officer safety, the appropriate use of force. I have no control of the phone. Including all the following topics. So the appropriate use of force, including legal standards for use of force. My favorite, duty to intercede, which we have no duty to intercede. We're the member, we're public. There is no duty, but help me out here. The use of objectively reasonable force, supervisory responsibilities, use of force review and analytics, de-escalation and interpersonal communication training, including tactical methods that use time, distance, cover, concealment to avoid escalating situations that lead to violence, implicit and explicit bias and cultural competency. I've only got 4 more left. Skills including de-escalation techniques to effectively, safely, and respectfully interact with people of disabilities or of behavioral health issues. Use of force scenario training, including situations of low frequency, high risk situations and calls for service, shoot or don't shoot situations, real-time force option decision-making, mental health and policing, including bias and stigma, active shooter situations, and any other topic, it says right here, any other topic deemed appropriate by the Bureau. How much more can you get in an 8-hour class? There's no way you can teach all this stuff in an 8-hour class.
Right.
I mean, you can mention it. You can say, and this is what I told the Bureau, and this is probably what's going to happen. You can say in there, okay, we want to talk about restrictions on search and seizures. Number one, a security officer doesn't search anybody other than for a weapon. We inspect everything, but we don't search anybody for other than a weapon. Boom. Now, you want to take searches and seizures to another level? Throw it into an elective class. Make it another 2-hour elective or make it a 4-hour elective. But that's all you need to say for the powers of arrest, just for the additional guard. Next question. Sorry.
No, I mean, you talk about getting through that entire, if the goal is to cover all of these topics in 8 hours, I mean, you barely got through reading the list in 8 hours. No, I'm just kidding. But in all
this is already signed in law. Ashlee.
Right.
This is already, the governor said yes. We went, listen, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I went and spoke. I testified at the assembly level. I testified at the Senate level. We sent letters to the governor's office trying to stop Holden doing this stuff or cut back on this stuff. And for nothing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
Well, and to be fair, and I've heard you say this many times over, David, all of those topics are great topics. No one's going to argue that we don't want our officers trained in these topics. The argument is simply, it's not practical to train them in the first 8 hours, not to mention,
before you get a guard card.
Right, before you even have your guard card. And I think, there's a strong argument to be made that if we're training these people before they even have their guard card with all of this information, what's going to happen on their first day at the job when they don't have enough time to really absorb this information for it to be taught properly? I just feel like there's a big concern there as well.
There's a tremendous concern there. Just even the topic of active shooter. I
Yeah.
mean, that is not a
Yeah.
15-minute conversation in anybody's way. It's something that has to be gone over explicitly, but not the first 8 hours in order to get a guard card. You can say, hey, active situation, active shooter situations happen.
Yeah.
They happen usually at this location and stuff, and then move on.
Right.
So
Right.
this is another elective, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And that's what we're working on. And the Bureau is very receptive to it. I mean, they understand that we can't do it. Post Peace Officer Standards and Training, and if anybody's on here from Post or anybody's been in law enforcement, they love training. I mean, they eat up training. They'll do as many
Yeah.
hours as you can. Like I said, they said this whole thing should be about a 3-month course,
Right.
and rightly so.
Yeah.
And again, I told the Assembly and the Senate, we're not objecting to training.
Right.
We're objecting to how we go about doing the training. That's what we're objecting.
Absolutely. Well, I know you are itching to get to AB 229's quote unquote brother bill, AB 2515. We have about 5 minutes left. So let's go ahead and end by talking about AB 2515.
So for those of you that are PPOs in the industry versus proprietary private security officers, it's been my experience being the president for CALSAGA for, I don't even know how many years it is now, Kate, 7 years maybe.
I think 7 years.
Okay, thanks. My memory is going after a couple of years. A good amount of people that are causing a lot of these problems for us are in the proprietary side of the house. They're bouncers at bars that are grabbing people, throwing them out on their fannies, and concerts where they grab people, they grab them by their arm real hard, and they walk them out. Whatever the case is being, the guy later on looks at his arm, he's got a good bruise on it. Where did the bruise come from when he sobered up? So a lot of this stuff came from the proprietary side of the business. And I explained to Holden that this law that he wrote was only for the PPO side, not for the proprietary side. So I explained to him what the difference was between proprietary and a contract company. So the sister bill to 229 is to mandate that the proprietary guys have to follow the same reporting requirements that we do. And we're behind the bill 110%. Holden's behind the bill, the Bureau's behind the bill, and we're getting a little bit more teeth so that the Bureau can go enforce it. We tried pushing a law a couple of years ago with Assemblyman Cooper here in Sacramento because 2 people were killed in San Diego County by bouncers within 2 weeks. The bouncers they were convicted felons. They threw the guys out on their head, subsequently bouncing on the sidewalk for a couple of minutes, and subsequently passed away. So it wasn't the right time in society to push the proprietary bill, because the proprietary officers, same like loss prevention, when they go out and they grab somebody, they tackle somebody in the parking lot. They're going to have to explain this just like we're going to have to explain it. It's not fair that we're the only ones explaining what we're doing, and these guys who society thinks are security guards anyhow, they're going to have to do it. So that's what. So I'm happy about the AB 2515. Now, there is one caveat that the Bureau snuck in there without anybody asking, but not a bad deal. For those of you that have officers that carry batons, batons have been you get a baton permit and it's good for your lifetime. You'll never have to take a baton class again. If anybody's been in law enforcement, I was in law enforcement, using a baton is a perishable skill, okay? It's gonna have to be retaken every 2 years, just like the firearm is.
Right.
Now, we haven't had many incidents with people getting hit by a baton in the street because it's not reported. But CALSAGA itself is going along with it, saying, okay, we understand it. We know why you want to do it. And we're not fighting it. So that's coming up. That's in 2515 also.
Yeah. So that's a good note. And again, it's like the updates with the training. Change is always difficult at first, but no one's arguing that the training in itself is not a good idea. Same with the baton. And I think overall, it sounds like AB 2515 really is a win for us. And I know that was a lot of work on your behalf, just like with AB 229 to kind of get that up and running. And then also one of the big wins is the, hopefully the goal will be able to include, more teeth, like you were saying, for BSIS, which really is a win for all of us on this call today, because we're here playing by the rules. We're doing the right things. We're investing in the management and the administrative staff to check all the boxes like we're supposed to. And so really what we need BSIS to do is to make it a level playing ground. And in the past, that's not always been something that they've been able to do because the Bureau just didn't have enough of that. So I think that overall it's a big win.
And we've got a great, and I mean this, we have a great working relationship with the Bureau. Sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes the Bureau likes me, sometimes they don't like me. It's usually they don't like me more than they like me. However, I'm up here at least once or twice a month. I'm always continually meeting with the chief of the Bureau. I call her on her cell phone. I call the deputy chiefs on their cell phone. Because if you don't know, the Bureau is not paid out of the general fund. The Bureau is paid by your money.
Right.
Your registration fees pay the Bureau's fees. So I hold them accountable to us, to CALSAGA and all our membership, and to every security officer in California. I do want to mention, Garrett brought up an important thing about duty to intervene. We, as security officers, do not have a duty to intervene. We're not peace officers. We have a duty to pay taxes as American citizens, but we're not going to get into that. And it's certainly nothing that the Bureau is going to make us do, but they're going to talk about that you don't have a duty to intervene. So we turn that one around inside the Bureau.
Well, David, I cannot thank you enough. It has been my extraordinary honor to interview you on this topic. I think you did a great job of not, shooting out too many shots of depresso. I want to thank everybody who attended today. We're not done yet, but I just want to take a quick second to say thank you. This is our most highly registered coffee chat yet. And this was something that, we kind of dreamed up in my ambassador committee. And I just really enjoy that all of you, so willingly are coming along for the ride. Obviously, this is important content as well. Wouldn't have been possible to do this coffee chat on this topic without David. He's a wealth of knowledge, and it was so fun to pick his brain in preparation for today. And then today I had to write down a few things because there was still more that I learned. Every time I talk to David, I feel like I learned something new. So I'm glad that we were able to share all of that.